Good evening, and what a fabulous evening it is. Welcome back to Liquid Gold TV, brought to you by Braeburn Whisky. I'm Reyne, and this episode I'm going to focus in on art and collectibles as tangible assets and their comparison to whisky. So, fill your glass with something special and come and join me for a dram. Reyne Hirsch really knows her way around the world of antiques and collectibles, and we are delighted to have her with us this evening on Liquid Gold TV. Hello, Reyne.
Hello.
Hi there. Calling all the way from Houston in Texas.
Houston, Texas, yes.
So Reyne has appraised items ranging from watches through to $20 million paintings, and viewers might actually recognise her from Antiques Roadshow PBS. She's also the founder of the Reyne Gallery, which specialises in 20th century decorative arts, wristwatches and collectible cars, and co-founder of The Finer Things in New York City. So there's plenty of meaty, juicy information, I'm sure, to get out of you this evening. Art and antiques are sort of your quintessential luxury items. They are, everyone's sort of aware that they are something to aspire to wanting to own for both the beauty of them and for their potential as investment items. So what attracted you to the world of arts and antiques?
You know, basically I became an accidental collector. I was living in New York and I had moved from Texas, which is where I'm from originally. And I decided that I wanted to have this New York style home, which I didn't even know what that meant, but it meant something to me. I felt like my house should be decorated with things that were like things that I couldn't find back in Texas. So I had moved to New York, and when I was living there, in between jobs and on the weekends, I would spend time going into antique shops. And not because I was a collector of antiques, I just saw pretty things in the window and I wanted to stop and take a look because they were things like I had not seen in Houston. And one of the reasons why is because Houston is a relatively newer city. So you didn't have people immigrating here. You didn't have people that were retiring here from somewhere else where wonderful things might have ended up. So I would see these beautiful things. I didn't really know anything about them, but if I could afford them, I would buy them and bring them to my home. And interestingly enough, I seemed to gravitate towards things that were from the Art Nouveau era, which were all iridescent and kind of organic in nature. I didn't know that at the time. I was just like, ooh, look at these pretty things. And I just started acquiring things. So after a period of time, I started to lean towards things that I found to be a little more expensive than the things that I started out collecting. So I thought, well, if I sell these 5 things, I can afford this one. So I started looking for avenues in which to dispose of the things that I had bought earlier on that I no longer wanted, hence accidentally becoming a dealer.
Mm-hmm. So you sort of specialised because of what you enjoyed looking at, what you enjoyed collecting yourself.
Yeah.
So the Art Nouveau obviously covers a broad range of painting, of various art forms. Is there a particular medium that you specialise in?
Well, I specialize, everybody knew me for selling Tiffany glass windows and lamps. So iridescent glass, beautiful things, beautiful windows and lamps that were made by Louis Comfort Tiffany. But I also sold American and European impressionistic art and wristwatches that were vintage, not necessarily turn of the century and Art Nouveau, but I was looking for things that I found aesthetically pleasing. So anything that I sold were things that I would have in my own home, and things that I could talk about and get people excited about, as opposed to selling things that, you know, maybe I didn't really care anything about. Also things that had trend. So if they had been selling in the marketplace, like at auction, you could come up with a value for it. And you could also see over the last 5 or 10 years what percentage of return these items brought when placed back into the market. So you could kind of tell with a trend, like, okay, there is no guarantee, just like there's no guarantee in the stock market, but you can see that Tiffany glass, for example, or Tiffany lamps, where every year you see a similar item selling for 5% more or 10% more than it was the year before. So you can kind of see, we'll project what your rate of return will be.
So it's something that we keep coming back to on Braeburn, and we've spoken to some wonderful guests, you being one of them, about the fact that you have to diversify. If you're investing, and diversify that portfolio and make sure that you're investing in things that make you tick, that you can actually enjoy and get some pleasure from owning.
Yes.
But also that it's diverse enough that should things change, you can keep these things back that aren't performing so well, and then possibly sell on the things which are performing better in the market. You mentioned the last sort of the various trends that you've seen. Is there anything at the moment that's performing especially well? Have you noticed any changes?
Well, things kind of vary depending on where your location is. But here in the United States, we tend to see a lot of mid-century modern furniture and decor doing well. We see wristwatches doing exceptionally well. The contemporary art market is definitely on fire. And there's an old saying is not to put all of your eggs in one basket. Diversifying, because if one market is not doing well and you've placed everything into that market, you could very quickly see, all of your hard-earned money and savings just gone. So if you've got a little bit here and a little bit there, and maybe a couple of different places, whether you're doing stocks and then investment level art and antiques or collectibles, and then perhaps real estate, you kind of have a diverse group of things to where some of your money might be saved, as to where, instead of losing everything, should the market fall out, should the economy go upside down.
For someone coming sort of straight into new to investing in art and antiques, what would you say is a really good place to start? Or would someone who perhaps has invested in other things before, would you say from your own experience, start with things that you love?
Absolutely. That's the very first thing I tell people, because people ask me often, if you had $50,000, where would you place your money? And I said, well, where I would place my money may not be the same place where you would place yours. And I say to them to buy something that you love. Find something that you love, whether it's a specific artist, painter, or whether it's furniture, whether it's decorative arts, whatever it is, make it something that you have a passion for. So if that market should go a little upside down, if you love the item that you bought, you've not lost anything. But if you bought something that you don't care anything about, just as a way to park your money, and the market does go upside down, well, here, not only do you have something that you've lost the value in, but you don't even like it. And apparently if the market has gone bad, neither does anybody else.
Especially if it's decorative and you've got it in your home and you just...
Yeah, so when you
look at it with bitterness every time you see it.
Yes. So that anytime that you decide that you're going to invest in fine arts and antiques, it's always best. There's so many markets in which you can choose from. Choose one that speaks to you. Choose one that, for example, if it's a painting and you walk into a room, every time you walk into that room, well, you're seeing your money hanging on the wall and you like what you see. Or if it's a car, and every Sunday when you decide to take that car for a drive around the block just to keep that battery charged, whatever, you're going to enjoy it. And I think that, if it's a watch, every time you look down at your wrist to see what time it is, it's useful, it makes you smile, and you like it. I have always been somebody that has greatly enjoyed diversifying my portfolio and surrounding myself with beautiful things. And if you can't use it, what fun is it? I feel like, hanging a stock certificate on the wall is nowhere near as fun as hanging, an Andy Warhol. So do something that you like.
Well, this is one of the great things that we see with Whisky investors and with anyone that we've spoken to. There's such passion behind the relationship between time and passion for what you're investing in is more likely to, with tangible assets, provide a return. Not only are you keeping your wealth secure, but it's going to provide a return. And in the time that it's accruing value, you're going to enjoy owning it, having it, and experiencing it with whisky and drinking it, or with art and seeing it. Yes. Would you say over the last few months, we've definitely seen with whisky at Braeburn that there's been quite quite development in people investing in whiskey casks and keeping their finances safe in tangible assets. Have you noticed a peak over the last few months?
I certainly have. It's very interesting because obviously here as well, it's an election year. And a lot of times during election year, you see people being a little more conservative with their money because they're not really sure what's going to happen since the election is coming. And the gold market here is extremely strong. The art market here has been on fire, the watch market, and people are spending money buying antiques and collectibles a lot more than you would normally see them doing this time of the year.
Why would you think that is, in your opinion?
Truthfully, I'm not really sure why it is. People seem to be very, very comfortable right now. I guess with the stock market being as high as it is, the gold market being high, jobs picking back up since COVID and so many people were unemployed. I mean, our unemployment is not back to as low as it was pre-COVID, but it is definitely dropping. People are starting to get back out again. They're starting to feel a little more comfortable. So that might have something to do with it. But the market, normally you would see an absolute panic between COVID, unemployment going up so high. And I don't know if they just had anticipated the stock market to take a turn. And so therefore they were going to pull some of their money out of the stock market and buy things, you know, that they enjoyed. And traditionally the arts and antiques market has always had a better rate of return than the stock market. So perhaps that's why a lot of collectors sensing that, knowing that, or experiencing that in the past when the market has gone into a little bit of turmoil, perhaps that's the reason why they're spending money buying tangible items currently.
I think that makes perfect sense. And then you couple that with the fact that people have been confronted with what really matters to them as well, not only from an investment perspective, but what do I want to get from my life? Do I want to have beautiful things around me? Do I want to enjoy sipping on a whiskey with my family in 15 years' time when I'm able to visit my cask? It's lovely to see people actually really thinking about what really matters and putting their money into things which can bring them joy and not just returns. And I think it's fairly even split in whiskey what people are doing to either make returns or to protect their wealth, and they're often delightfully surprised with how well they return. Do you find the same with art and antiques? Do you think it's similar?
Absolutely. People are going back to surrounding themselves with family and beautiful things, the things that are bringing them happiness. And the funny thing about, when you start to look for that silver lining with situations like COVID, for example, it's a horrible thing, clearly, but it has brought people back to kind of the way that maybe our grandparents were raised, where you spent more time with the family and you spent more time doing things that meant something to you. And instead of just rushing around, we as a society, we're lucky if we sit down to have a meal together anymore, because we're always racing here, racing there, working late, doing this, doing that. And all of a sudden, this has forced us to spend more time again back at home, back with our family, having conversations, getting more in touch with our happiness, our internal happiness, and maybe a little bit of nostalgia as well. So a lot of things about collecting have to do with nostalgia many, many times. For example, if somebody happens to collect baseball cards, let's say, or sporting memorabilia, a lot of times people that collect that, they remember being a kid and they remember going to those games and maybe getting an autographed baseball or whatever it was. It's a happier time in their life, and it makes them smile. So it's another reason why people collect.
It's also so multisensory. When you're dealing with older products, you've got the smell, you've got the touch, everything feels a bit thicker and better made if it's from an earlier time, an older time.
Absolutely. Yes.
And the nostalgia is so important.
I tell people whenever they're looking to invest in arts and antiques or collectibles, for them to choose, first of all, as we talked about earlier, choose whatever speaks to you, whatever category speaks to you, and then determine what your budget is. If you have a budget of $500 or if you have a budget of $50,000, whatever it is, and then go and buy the absolute best that budget allows. Buying lots of smaller things, for that one budget, those things will tend to never go up in enough, any kind of substantial value. But the things that are harder to come by and the best of that budget will move up as far as from a valuation standpoint a lot faster than the lower end items will. So find what you like, pick a budget, and then buy the absolute best that that budget will allow.
Well, that actually kind of leads me on to want to ask, we've talked about the nostalgia of the past, but actually as investment potential, we want to look forward and see what's going on, or potential trends that you might have spotted that we shall keep an eye on. So is there anything that you've seen that you would recommend people just keep their eye on in the arts and antiques world?
Interestingly enough, the things that we're starting to see creep into the market is 21st century furniture. So things from the 90s. A lot of, furniture, things that that this generation grew up with in their home or in their parents' home. So a category that you hadn't really seen very often before at the auction houses, at the major auction houses, is now starting to become something that we're seeing more regularly and is bringing top of the line money.
Is that with what sort of demographic are tending to invest in that? Is that sort of younger millennial push sort of demographic?
Yes. Absolutely. Younger millennial, they're big into experiences. And so they think a lot about, their experience of being a child and seeing these things, or having these things in their home. And so, and with family time, and their friends. And that's kind of the correlation of why, they're spending their money or parking their money on things like that.
I have to say, I'm really enjoying hearing from such an expert who is also a female art dealer and art collectible dealer, because it's a great thing in looking at sort of millennials and looking at the sort of state of the business world and working world. With investment and with whiskey, there are lots of female whiskey drinkers who are really into it and really enjoy it. And it's always been quite a stereotypically male pastime.
That's true. I'm in Texas, and Texas is all about whiskey. The women here definitely love whiskey.
Reyne, it's been an absolute delight talking to you. Thank you for giving up some of your evening to speak with us here on Braeburn Liquid Gold TV. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope that the hurricane doesn't affect you too adversely. But take care of yourself, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Have a great day.
It is one of my favourite parts of the episode now. We get to have a musician on every week, and this week we have Rachel Lightbody. Hello, Rachel.
Hello.
So Rachel is an acclaimed vocalist and tutor. In 2018 and 2019, she was nominated for Best Vocalist at the Jazz Awards because she sings all the things, all the different kinds of music. She has worked with a wide range of artists, including, we've got Fatsu, Tom McGuire, the Brassholes, one of my favourite names of the band, Alyn Cosker, Siobhan Miller, and her own vocal trio, Little Acres. So, Rachel, you clearly love singing.
I do. Yes, I'm obsessed. If you haven't noticed, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how you got into singing and music, and why singing was the thing that got you.
Okay. Well, I've done it all my life. Like I started out playing piano. My dad plays piano. So there was just like the Lightbodies are just big fans of music. So I was kind of surrounded by lots of different styles of music since I was really small. And then I started learning piano. My mum and dad loved to sing, so there was just always songs kicking about. You always had to do a turn. You always had to join in with harmonies. So just I've always done it. And then through school, like I kept my piano up, and then just it came the opportunity to go to uni, and I mean all I could really do was music. So I just decided to do that, and literally I haven't really given it much more thought than I love it, so I'll just keep doing it. So yeah, I just haven't stopped since then. So
it sounds like you actually are doing your like dream job almost just because it kind of happened.
Yeah, like just because there's nothing else that I could do. It was just, it is one of those things that's like when people were like, what do you want to do? Like, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go? Like, I didn't really think too much of it. It was just more like, this is what I love to do. So just keep studying it and keep doing it and not think too much about it. So, yeah.
have you got any particularly great stories from your career that you could regale us with?
Oh, one of the most amazing gigs I can remember. You know those gigs that you're just like surrounded in sweat because you're having the most fun? Was as a backing vocalist with Little Acres for Tom McGuire and the Brassholes. We were doing Craig Charles, Funk and Soul, like Christmas night. So there you go. I mean, like just a quiet night. And it was like the O2 Academy in Glasgow, like such an amazing venue. Sold out, like it just, like there was just such a vibe. And those boys in that band just know how, like they just know how to have fun. And that's, I think, some like testament to their success, because they're just like, people are here to party and dance and like throw all their inhibitions away. And that's, as like sitting in backing vocalists, we kind of just went along on that train ride, and we were just, I think there's footage of that night, and like me and the rest of the girls are just like throwing shapes like we didn't even know we could. It's just, you know, those that you're just like, yes, this is it, this is why we do this. So yeah, that was a definite highlight.
That sounds amazing. I hope we can get back to that soon. I hope we can get back to being full of rooms full of people. That's what I want.
Oh, it'll be so nice. Can't wait.
Hope we do. Now, speaking of parties, obviously there have been fewer and further between for the last few months, but how have you been keeping busy in lockdown? Have you been doing any online gigs? What have you been doing?
It's actually been a wee bit of a blessing this time, because for years I've wanted to sit down and like write an album, but I've never had the chance because I've been darting about doing lots of brilliant things. So instead of like going and doing online concerts, which I'm actually hoping to do in the next couple of weeks, because I've really figured out how to do it, is I've done a lot of writing, which I've loved, like a lot of headspace to kind of concentrate and focus on the art of writing, which I've never had the kind of time to do. So that's been really lovely.
Now, we obviously at Braeburn particularly fond of our whiskey.
Big fans.
Big. Are you a big fan of whiskey?
Yes.
Yes. Fantastic.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
What would be your desert island dram?
That's tough because because normally when I'm handed a dram, you're just like, this is all just delicious. But I have to say, if it came from Isla, then it would be okay in my books. Like a Bowmore, sort of vibe is really nice. I love anything that comes from Isla. So I would say in that region of the world would do me fine. But I'm not fussy, Reyne. Put it in a glass and I'll love it.
Well, we would absolutely love to have a performance from you. Are you gonna do one here, or are you gonna send us one to play?
So the song you'll be listening to is called Remember. And this is a song I wrote over lockdown. I guess the kind of story is just a woman kind of going deeper into the wonderful thing that we call dementia. So just kind of like thinking about thoughts, and I think it's kind of a universal thing, just something I was thinking about during lockdown. So this is a tune that I wrote called Remember.
That's absolutely beautiful. Rachel Lightbody, thank you so much for joining us. If you would like to find out more about Rachel, look her up. She's wonderful. She's got all sorts of things online. Rachel, I hope that we stay in touch, and we will send you a bottle of something nice to thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
She decided drinking in the last light, wondering why tomorrow might bring, and her thoughts often multiply in the night, making a plan for a long, heavy stay. songs and the stories of that time, trying to lift her from the pool of the tide, finding some comfort in the warmth she left behind. Where do we all go? What is it we need to show? There is only one time to
A very warm thank you to all of our guests once again, and to you for watching. We'll see you next time for another dram.